think about 10 kids, only 3 can read.
Oh,
It's
so 70% of the kids can't
They don't have reading
at 12th grade.
proficiency. 12th grade.
Wait, that's high school.
Yeah.
What? Welcome to Culture and Code, a podcast about the biggest shifts in culture and tech. I'm Rei and Tara, a creative entrepreneur and founding partner of IronCode, a global innovation firm based in New York, Tokyo, and Singapore.
And I'm Tara Tan, managing partner at Strange Ventures, an early stage fund focused on the future of computing.
So today's topic is interfaces versus the mind. And this conversation is inspired by two separate anecdotes and headlines that I saw in the past couple of months. So the first anecdote is more of an observation. And I'm kind of curious to hear what your observation might be on this topic. But I have a teenage daughter who's now 16, and she now is in a boarding school, so we don't live with her on an ongoing basis. But like a year or so, she was at home, and I would help her with her homework. And I'm watching her navigate her desktop on her PC, and she doesn't quite understand the concept of folders or these nested folders. I'm pretty, I think, organized about trying to structure folders in a logical, easy way so that, it's very clear, not only to me, but particularly like when I work with a team and team needs to find different files in different folders, and more clearly labeled and more logically organized the files are and then the folders are, it's easier to find, right? Yeah. But I've noticed that my daughter, a teenage daughter, doesn't organize files at all. And instead, she exclusively relies on desktop search to find files. I then read an interview with a professor. I teach in graduate school in New York, but also I read an interview with a different professor who said that she notices her college students don't know how to organize files. And they do a similar thing when finding files. They just exclusively use search to find files, and they don't organize files at all. So that got me thinking about how the interface, there are different types of interfaces, but particularly computer and screen interface, and finding files and literally physically organizing files on a server or on a desktop, and then cognitively organizing files, that the influence of interface has on people's psyche and mind, and just wanted to use that as a topic. So before I go to the next research topic that I was going to bring up, any reaction to that?
I mean, yeah, I guess I'm in between because I don't really organize and I rely on search most of the time. But sometimes I get into a whirl and I start organizing. But, it kind of reminds me of the library's like Dewey Decimal System, where previously, because it was sprawling, you had to be quite, sort of specific and organized about where things went. And nowadays, I think that the amount of content is just so high that it's impossible. And maybe it's sprawling,
impossible.
But it's not, it's also not very efficient because I have duplicates of stuff. I know I've downloaded stuff many times. Sometimes I can't quite find it. So it's there. Yeah, so it's interesting. I think it's just, sort of digital habits. I wondered that there's a difference here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other point that I wanted to bring up was a research study by an MIT researcher. And this was a paper published maybe about 2 months ago. We are recording in the middle of September, and I think it was like in June or July of this year, so a couple of months ago. So the title of this research called Your Brain on ChatGPT: Accumulation of Cognitive Debt When Using an AI Assistant for Essay Writing Tasks. And you've seen either this headline or maybe a similar headline.
I've read the paper,
recently.
Yeah, for the paper.
You've read the paper. Yeah. So just to give context to the people who haven't read this paper particularly, what this researcher did was take a group of people, divide them into 3 groups. And the researcher gave these individuals, which are students, a task, which is essay writing. And what they did was, for these 3 separate groups, they gave the same task to write an essay, but the process was deliberately different. So the first group was they were able to use ChatGPT or any AI tool freely to write their essay.
Mhm.
The second group was that they had to start writing manually, but then they could use AI to improve it. And then the third group was they were not allowed to use any tools, but they just had to write an essay out of their brain. And the research found that the AI powered writing, the brain activity was way less than the third group, which didn't use any AI to write. And then the middle group, which is AI assisted writing, was somewhere in between. I happened to see an interview with this researcher, and then the
Mhm.
interviewer started the interview by asking the researcher, oh, does that mean that AI makes people dumb and dumber? And the researcher was quick to point out, no, 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 that's not what this study means. And then she went on to explain how, like, AI assisted writing makes the writing or the output of this AI prompted essays quite vanilla and quite generic.
Right.
And then the human written essays had more originality. Maybe they had more mistakes, but the individuals in that group, each person has a different style and each writing was quite different. Whereas the first group was more homogeneous and then the middle group was somewhere in between. So the researcher went great lengths to explain that, oh, no, 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 AI is not making people dumb. But then I kept thinking, but that it actually may be.
I mean, I don't think it's dumb. I think it's just rewiring our brains. I mean, the Google effect
Yeah.
is well studied. The research around the Google effect is that the search engine has actually rewired neural pathways for us over the last couple of decades.
Okay. Say some on that.
Yeah, so that means that we actually have lost a lot of our memorization skills. So, you remember when you were kids, you were able to remember like your house number, your friend's like landline number, and all of that.
Yeah, landline numbers. Yes.
That
Yeah.
skill actually has been lost, and they actually studied it and
Mm.
found out that using Google over a couple of decades has actually rewired our neural pathways so that now we actually
Mm.
send less energy towards memorization and more energy towards referencing. So basically, like, oh, yeah, I went to this place and this reminds me of that. So it actually biologically changed our brains.
I see.
So
I
I
see. I
will
see.
not be surprised if in a couple of decades we'll see the same thing happen with LLMs, right?
Right. 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 Right.
Like just use of them and how does that reshape our neural pathways and where we send energy to and where our
Yeah.
brain allocates energy to, right? And that's a real thing.
Yeah. Do you find yourself thinking differently now that we all use AI one way or another way more frequently than we used to say 3 years ago? Do you find yourself cognitively different?
Yeah, I think that's a couple of things. I think that many people tend to, especially if you're starting to first use it, rely extensively on LLMs to think first, if you know what I mean. So, like, I have a problem, let me ask versus think and then, sort of research or verify with the LLM. And I think that's a dangerous place to be because then you're not putting in original thought. And it's interesting how the different models are actually designed to respond to you. I noticed that Claude's, like Anthropic's models, are actually designed, they actually, sort of design the experience to when you ask it something, it'll ask you back. So ask for human input. Whereas a lot of the other models would be like, you ask it, it gives you back straight up. So this sort of encouragement or this banter model, I think is actually quite different in my experience between using an Anthropic model and say
Different.
a Gemini or an OpenAI model.
Do you have a preference?
I use it for different things. I hop between them
Yeah. Okay.
for different things. And sometimes I exhaust one and then I go to the other.
Give me a use case scenario of you switching between different models. Yeah.
Say if I'm researching something, I might use Gemini for like deep research through like, because
Okay.
it's amazing. It trawls through like 300 pages in minutes,
Yeah.
like web pages. It's an incredible resource. Whereas if I'm trying to stress test an idea or just have a sounding kind of something to bounce back and forth, I would use
Mhm.
Claude a lot. And an OpenAI
Mm.
I use for kind of general, more like it's really good for unstructured into structured. That's my experience. So I use it for different things, and I often hop between, even with one problem space. But yeah, go back to your original topic around does it reshape our brains? Absolutely. I think that the temptation to rely on it to think is high.
Mm. Yeah. I wonder, in terms of these tools influencing the way we think or don't think, going to an
Yeah.
LLM to think for us first, I wonder if it's also giving us an encouragement to be better editors. So, for instance, when I use different AI tools and LLMs, one of the things is writing. And I've found whenever I used ChatGPT or Claude for idea generation, I find those ideas, like, let's say if I want to write a newsletter or something, that I find their topic suggestion to be very boring or very like mundane, generic, really generic. Yeah. So I spend way more time on thinking of an angle, thinking of a perspective, thinking of an idea that I can only come up with, or I bring my personal perspective to it so that it becomes more interesting and a different point of view as opposed to something that anybody can write. So the initial like 0 to 1, I've tried to use AI to do it, but I've found it to be inadequate. Where I use and I found LLMs to be super useful is editing. So I would write and I would ask for feedback and it would point out, and I don't necessarily agree with every point that it makes, but it makes me, oh, you know what, this is the point. Oh, you know what, I'm keeping the original writing that I did. Oh, this is, so I kind of go back and forth, go back and forth. Speaking of which LLM, I happen to use this writing tool called Lex that allows you to switch between different tools, different LLMs. And depending on every week, there's a new model or updated version of the existing model. So it changes fairly frequently and it recommends the best model at that given time. Let's say the clause, this version is better than ChatGPT or Gemini or what have you. But anyways, so I use it for editing purposes. I've used it to expand my writing. Hey, add 200 words just to see one additional case. I found most LLMs to be kind of inadequate. And then I switch out of that writing tool to do research to find other points to add to it and then write it, edit it. And then, so like 0 to 1, I come up with my own. 1 to 8, I go back and forth between myself and then the LLMs. And then like 8, 9, 10 of 10 steps, it's exclusively me. So I find myself thinking harder to edit. Like generating, I can rely on AI quite a bit, but I find myself editing more than I used to.
I started really trying to use it to challenge me, to challenge my
Okay.
thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I actually try to move it into an opinion mode, which is actually quite interesting
Oh,
because I feel like
okay.
that actually pushes both me and the LLM more, because the LLM would basically prompt me, be like, "What do you really think?" Or, "This isn't interesting enough."
Wait, so when you say opinion mode, what do you mean by that exactly?
So, like, it kinda moves into more of an opinionated model.
As opposed to fact-based mode.
Yeah, or moving away from more fact-based or more just, like, pacifying when it's like,
Okay.
"Oh, yes, great thoughts, here." I
Yeah,
should
yeah,
try to
yeah.
move it into an opinionated mode,
Yeah,
and I find that that's actually more interesting for me.
yeah.
So I should try to move it there.
Do you find yourself agreeing it or disagreeing with it quite a bit or even like offended?
Sometimes it's been a little rude, but, there was one when I was just kind of like, I mean, I
Yeah.
was extremely tired, so I kept pushing it,
Okay.
and then it said I was like, "No, I don't like any of this." And then at the 3rd try, I think it got really frustrated, or the pattern was like, it told me, "You don't want anything, just take a break now, or just don't do anything at all. Just go
No
take a walk."
way.
It told me to go touch some grass.
No
Okay.
way.
This is a parasocial
Yeah.
relationship forming with the AI, but it's
Oh,
true, it's like,
man.
yeah, I got it too. It's interesting. I find it now, like, I try to flip it into either an opinionated mode or
Yeah.
a mode where a little bit of personality comes out, and I find
Mm,
that challenges me more too. So it makes me actually get better at my writing and my thinking.
yeah. This is a slightly different topic, but related to the initial topic of interface versus the mind. When it comes to these tools for our kids, so our oldest one is 16, teenager. Our youngest one is just about to turn 5. So there's a pretty big gap between the two. Our oldest one, like I said at the beginning, she goes to boarding school. So she's out of the house. We can't quite control how she's using digital tools. And I know for a fact that she uses ChatGPT. We don't let her use a paid version. We don't pay for her account, but I'm pretty sure she uses it to do her homework and all that, right? And as far as we know, that I like to think that she has good judgment and she's not having like strange thought or dangerous thoughts and having those conversations with AI and, having like
Right.
thoughts that we don't want her to have, as far as me know. But
Yeah.
it's something that I think we have to watch out so that she doesn't go in a dark rabbit hole. Yeah. But for the time being, I think she's got a pretty decent, I think, judgment. Now, our youngest one, I mean, he has absolutely no concept of AI or what have you, right? One thing that we've done pretty deliberately about 2 years ago when he was 2, we stopped letting him use any screen.
Hmm.
So we took away his iPad. We don't have a TV screen at home. We have my wife and I, we have our individual devices, iPhones.
Hmm.
And sometimes he uses it to see photos or videos that we took, but rarely we give him that device to distract him. Because a couple of years ago, we noticed that when we would try to take it away from him, he would get really frustrated and
Right.
really cranky. That we felt that these devices and these screens were cognitively making him short-tempered, or at least whenever
Mhm.
we would try
Right.
to take it
Screen
away. And then,
dependency, all that, yeah.
yeah, screen dependent. Yeah, exactly. And then in the past couple of years, we might be biased, but I think it was probably one of the best decisions that we made for him. So, we read to him quite a bit before he goes to bed. We don't show him screens at all. Yeah. And then the reason I brought up is that when would I or should I introduce AI to him?
It's such a timely topic, and it's very polarizing. So I
Mm.
almost took the opposite approach.
You did.
But we're fairly like, my kid's 5 and 4. We're not super they don't have their iPads, they have maybe like 30 minutes of TV a day. But
Okay.
my kid right now, he's doing like Khan Academy math. He's in kindergarten.
Oh.
And actually I took almost the opposite approach where I actually exposed him to
Hmm.
AI this year, where I
Okay.
let him talk to the LLM
Yeah.
directly
Yeah.
to ask different questions. So, like, right now he's,
Mhm.
like, super into Pokemon, so he's asking about, like, different types of Pokemon. And it's interesting, I mean, I think Gen Alpha, which is your younger kid, I mean, they're growing up in
Yeah.
a totally different world, right? And the way they learn is going to be supremely different from how we learned in school and how
Mm.
we studied. And I don't
Mm.
think that's the right answer. There are schools, like the Alpha School, which has a very interesting model. The only way they learn is the kids, I think it's like, sort of middle school, I believe. They
Mm.
only learn for 2 hours a day with an AI tutor. There are adults in school, they're not allowed to teach. So they're not allowed to teach. They're only allowed to make sure things don't go haywire, but the only learning the kids do is with AI tutor for 2 hours, and then the rest of
Mm.
the time is project time. So they build stuff with
Okay.
their friends and peers, they have
Yeah.
different build projects. But it's a very controversial school. But apparently,
Mm.
grade scores have just, like, skyrocketed over the last 6 months. I just saw a report today that American kids,
Mm.
our test scores are going down the drain.
I heard that. Yeah. Yeah.
Guess what percentage of kids have reading and math proficiency at 12th grade right now?
30, 40%?
Which is crazy, 30%. Do you know
30%?
that in most markets or most countries, it's about 90%. In Japan, it's like 99%. 30%. It's
Wow.
insane. 30%. So think about 10 kids, only 3 can read.
Well, so
It's not
70% of the kids can't
they don't have reading
at 12th
proficiency.
grade.
12th
12th
grade,
grade.
12th grade.
Wait, that's high school.
Yeah.
What? In the
It was
US?
something is not right. Yeah, it just came out today, and I was looking at it. Something's not
No,
right,
you
like,
know what I meant when I said 30%. I thought 30% are the ones who can read and then 70% can't read. It's the
no,
opposite you're saying.
35% proficient in
Yeah.
reading, 22% proficient in math. So
Oh,
80%, 70 to 80% are basically illiterate.
and this is 12th grade, high school.
12th grade.
That
We're
is
close. Like,
crazy.
this is not good. Like, this is so, so incredibly bad.
But is that because of the use of computers and devices?
I think there's a whole bunch of reasons. I don't think you can just blame it on computers
Yeah.
and devices. Like, could be COVID.
Yeah,
I don't
probably.
know.
Yeah,
There's a
you're
whole
right.
bunch of stuff, right? But it's bad.
Wow.
Like,
Wow. I
America's
guess it's a
basically
fucking matter.
illiterate. It's like we're literally illiterate. Like, it's so bad. So and it makes me wonder, like, I'm like, is it
Hmm.
screens? Is it right to blame screens? I don't think so. Because if you look at
Yeah, it's probably not. Yeah.
other countries, like, even developing countries have, like, at least 80 or 90% proficiency.
Right.
We're like
Right.
30%. This is horrible. And it's not screens, like, kids are exposed to screens all around the world, So, like,
Hmm,
something's
hmm, hmm,
not right. Something's
hmm.
not right here. And I hear very different opinions from parents. Some parents are like, "I don't like my kids touching AI. I don't want them to touch it until, like, at least college." But I do think that there is some sort of skill with working with AI, and so, like but there's a
Hmm.
balance, obviously. So I don't think there's a right
Yeah.
or wrong answer, but for me, I'm actually, like, slowly introducing
Interesting.
them to it because I wanna see
Yeah.
how they interact with I mean, it's partly selfish. I'm, like, so curious how they interact with it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say recently, just a couple weeks ago, I did let my 4-year-old interact with the voice mode of
Yeah,
ChatGPT.
that's right. Yeah.
And what I thought was interesting and potentially promising is so, for instance, I speak Japanese to me and my wife, we're Japanese. So we speak Japanese at home to him. Before this summer, he would answer everything that we say in Japanese. So we speak 95% of the time in Japanese to him, and then maybe 5% when he doesn't quite understand what we're saying. We speak in English. But 100% of the time, his responses were in English because he's now in kindergarten, but he was in 3K and his friends are English speaking. And obviously, right, school is in English. We go to Japan this summer, and within 3 weeks, he switched
Yeah.
from English to Japanese.
Wow.
And within 3 weeks, he was responding to us in Japanese. He was staying with my wife's family, grandparents. So it was 100% not just us, but then other people were Japanese speaking. So he was able to, within 3 weeks, pick up enough words, enough Japanese to be able to, imperfect, very broken, but still, his responses became Japanese. And then we started school, obviously, this September. He's still speaking back to us in Japanese, but just so that he can keep up with Japanese, I let him use ChatGPT voice mode and started having a conversation in Japanese. And he was having a conversation
But
and he was getting such a kick out of it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the
Yeah.
thing, and this is like kind of a double-edged sword, it would never stop talking, like the LLM, right? It would say something and it would ask back a question. And then my son would say something and he would respond and it was just kind of never ending. So we had to take it away from him at some point. Yeah. But I thought that was a decent use of AI for a young kid. And then maybe even for grown-ups too, like to teach a language or to learn a language and having that kind of conversation partner. Before you had to be a human being, but now LLMs are good enough to be able to be a conversation partner, and that I saw a lot of potential.
I mean, going back full circle to how we started this
Yeah,
conversation, right?
yeah,
Like, I was thinking about it the other day, and I was like, I was talking to a friend, and they were like, "It's so crazy. Just the amount of new releases and innovation and invention that's
yeah.
happening in the last few years feels insane." And I'm
Mhm.
like, I actually think this is going to be status quo. Like, this is a new normal. The
Oh,
amount of
right,
speed
right.
of new information is a new normal. So actually, I think we're
Mm,
humans are in an evolutionary moment where
mm.
we're gonna be able to have to learn to take in that amount of information at that speed
All the time, all the time.
all the time. I think this is the new normal. I actually don't think
Yeah.
that it's going to slow down.
No, it's not going to slow down. No,
It's not gonna slow down. But
100%.
I
Yeah,
think this amount of information is the new normal. So the question
yeah,
is, do we need to build tools along the way to help us keep up? Is curation going to be more important? Or, are the kids gonna come in and just be able to, like, absorb this amount of information that quickly? But
yeah,
the speed of learning is going to be exponential.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Cool. So just to wrap up, two things before we
That was
wrap
a very
up.
heated conversation.
Yeah, I want to do our takeaway, each of our takeaway.
Sure. Sure.
And
Yes.
I
Okay.
want to try this new segment idea that you and I talked about before recording, which is sharing a story. But so the takeaway for this conversation about the influence that interfaces have on our minds, I'll go first, which is borrowing what you said. I don't think that these new interfaces and these new tools will make us more stupid. I think they may make us more lazy, but to your point, I think they rewire our brains to think differently or to react differently to whatever that comes at us. So my hopeful observation of the current state and the future state is that these tools, whether the prompt-based tools or voice-based tools or other tools, they may make us a little bit lazy in some ways, but I think it opens up other opportunities. And I think they rewire our brains differently to open up possibilities. That's my takeaway from this conversation.
Cool.
Yours?
My takeaway is maybe more of a parting thought, which is you talked about how your kid is able to, like, after 3 weeks in Japan, pick up
Yeah.
Japanese.
Yeah.
And I would say embrace that child in you and keep an open mind and have some sort of neuroplasticity, like that sort of framework. I would encourage like everyone to kind of stay in that kid mode where your mind is open and you're learning all the time. And I think that's the only way to move on.
Cool. Cool.
All right.
All right.
See you soon.
All right. Yeah.